Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Scottish Crypto Show. Today's episode we are going to talk about a new piece of legislation being proposed in the US about El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin. Before we begin, please like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at Scotsman Crypto. As always, in the description for today's video you'll find a link to my free Discord, which has all crypto related news and beginner's guides and how to get invested, and also some breakdowns on altcoins. You'll also find a link to a free trading telegram that you can get involved in, and of course Luno, where you get £10 free Bitcoin when you sign up using the code in description. Okay, so today's episode we are going to talk about why the US is so keen to get involved in other people's interests when they have all these issues at home. And the first thing we're going to look at is this piece of legislation here. So 3 senators in the States have submitted some legislation on the Accountability for Cryptocurrency in El Salvador Act. And this legislation is going to be a report into the fact that El Salvador's adopted Bitcoin as legal tender and the concerns that these senators have for the economic stability of the US as a trading partner of Central America. Now, we all know the problems that the US has with inflation, with rising interest rates and massive debt right now. It seems bizarre that they're focusing on such a small country. El Salvador's got the same population as Scotland, so about 5 to 6 million people, and quite a small GDP. I think it's about 25 billion, so can't see why this is a big issue to the United States. But if we look closely at the bill, El Salvador recognising Bitcoin as official currency opens the door for money laundering and undermines US interests, according to one of the senators, which seems ironic given the amount of money laundering that gets done using dollars. And I can't really see how Bitcoin adoption in El Salvador is undermining US interests. But if we look down here in the middle part, it does say the new policy has the potential to weaken US sanctions policy and empower people to align with China. And this is a big part of why the US meddles in other people's affairs. It's not to do with anything to do with the United States. It's all about control. When countries are dollarized and use dollars as the reserve currency, as most of the world does, it gives the US significant power over those nations. They can impose sanctions, they can increase rates on trade, and it also gives them control when they make a monetary decision in the States. It affects a big portion of the world economy. Now, if people start adopting other currencies like Bitcoin, that obviously limits the control the US has over those countries. So massive for the developing world. I think more developing nations will adopt Bitcoin because they don't want to be a part of this dollarized scheme, and they also don't want to be impacted by policy decisions in Washington when they are in Latin America, Africa, or the Middle East. As you can imagine, President Bukele from El Salvador was not happy about this at all, and he tweeted, "Okay boomers, you have zero jurisdiction on a sovereign and independent nation. We are not your colony, your backyard, or your front yard. Stay out of our internal affairs and don't try to control something you can't control." So Bukele not happy at Washington for getting involved or even suggesting that they have a right to have a say in what goes on in El Salvador. They're an independent nation. They can choose what currency they use, what unit of account they use, which right now they have adopted Bitcoin. And it's good to see Bukele fighting back and kind of standing up for El Salvador. During the 90s and the 80s, Latin America was basically a training ground for the US. They used to send CIA, special forces down there to train and work with militia groups to overthrow government after government if it didn't suit the Washington agenda. So it's good to see the countries of Latin America stand up for themselves, and I think this will be a wake-up call to some of the other ones to say, you know, Bitcoin gives you power and say over your own affairs, and you don't have to be dictated to by Washington. I think if I was an American citizen right now, I'd be more concerned about what's going on in the economy of the United States. If we look at the debt clock, we can see US national debt over $30 trillion, as we know, federal spending over $7 trillion, and total revenue is $4 trillion. So you can see that is growing every day. And we also see federal debt to GDP ratio is now 125% due to the lack of production. As we know, during the pandemic and even before, to be fair, a lot of production of goods that are consumed in the United States were being exported abroad to places like China, Taiwan, and cheaper labour countries. So this would be really concerning for me if I was in the States right now and not worried about a small country like El Salvador and what they're doing with their fiscal policy. Just to put it in a proportion, the US national debt right now 30 trillion. El Salvador's debt's about 25 billion and is forecast to be 73% of GDP this year. So a lot less than the 125% that the states are seeing. And with Biden's Build Back Better, spend policy, this debt is only going to grow in the coming 2 years, despite interest rate rises, despite all the rhetoric about corporate tax. It's not going to work. They have a spending problem, not a revenue problem, and until they curb their spend, nothing will change. This concern with El Salvador also seems quite strange given the number of states, senators, and politicians that are now increasingly open to accepting Bitcoin for donations. We saw the mayor of New York accepting his Bitcoin salary in Bitcoin recently. We've saw states welcome Bitcoin miners to the state. West Texas is using mining to control the grid. You've got Wyoming Senator Loomis, really open to Bitcoin. She's happy to accept some of her salary in Bitcoin. And we've seen senator after senator come out and understand that the Bitcoin community is a massive community, and getting their endorsements will go a long way to getting them elected, and they're becoming very crypto friendly. So it seems strange that the US is then going to alienate a country that's effectively the first to adopt Bitcoin, but also doing a trial run for bigger nations. They should be supporting El Salvador, seeing how it goes, because it won't be long before certain states adopt Bitcoin. We've already seen Colorado introduce a bill to accept Bitcoin as legal tender, and this is just going to grow and grow and grow. So it seems like a strange time for this from the US government. This is just another example of hypocrisy from the United States. We've got governors, we've got mayors, senators, congressmen, all coming out in favour of Bitcoin, accepting Bitcoin, trying to attract talent to their state with crypto-friendly policies, but they're happy to go and impose their restrictions or their opinions on Latin America and El Salvador. Bukele kind of tweeted this out earlier as well, as why the international community is not condemning what's going on in Canada. The United States are quick enough to condemn Bukele for adopting Bitcoin, but when Canada suspends the rights of its citizens, seizes bank accounts, and even threatens pets that have been brought along to the demonstrations, there's no word from Washington. No one wants to get involved. No one wants to pin their name to it. It's just another example of hypocrisy from the United States government. They're happy to look south of the border, but when one of the big boys club, the G20 nations like Canada, has such strict rules and starts suspending civil liberties like they have been, they don't say anything. If what was going on in Canada right now was going on in China, was going on in Latin America or Africa, the United States government would be out in uproar against what's going on. They don't want to get involved. Hopefully the situation in Canada is resolved soon. I can't see how it can end with anything but an election or a referendum, but hopefully it's resolved soon, and we are seeing a massive rise in Bitcoin adoption in Canada because of this, so it can only be good for the crypto space. Thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter @ScotsmanCrypto.